Hi guys, and welcome back to F1 Fanatics. I'm Mike,
And I'm Ash.
and today we are going to be looking at the fantastic 50-year career of Frank Williams. But first, we do need to kind of just highlight, I think, one point from the review we might have got wrong, slightly harsh. We went in on Giovinazzi a little bit, saying he was a rookie mistake, but he had a puncture. So Giovinazzi, we are sorry for that.
Yes, sorry for actually blaming you when mechanical issue there.
It wasn't very nice. We feel very bad. You know, you're only just trying, started off in F1 and we're already...
We were saying that you weren't good enough, but yes.
We should probably get on with what we're meant to be doing because otherwise we'll go off on some random waffling thing again. So, Williams, right, we'll take you back to the start.
So we'll start at the beginning in 1966 when Frank Williams, who had been saving money from his job in groceries, decided that he was going to start a team in F3 and F2, working his way up into F1 in 1969.
And in 1969, that is when he went in with his good friend Piers Courage. Unfortunately, this kind of relationship wasn't to kind of last too long, as the following season in 1970, tragically, Piers Courage actually lost his life. And obviously, you know, if you lose your kind of one of your good friends in a crash, that's going to have a big effect on you. But Frank Williams didn't let it deter him. I think probably Piers would have wanted him to carry on in how he was racing and carry on in the business. So he carried on fighting despite that tragedy and going into the 1970s. Things were tough for Frank though in the 70s, and he struggled to kind of keep the business afloat, not paying his bills, so that meant that his office line was actually cut off and he was making business calls from a phone box. I guess Frank didn't sell enough apples to kind of keep it going there. But joking aside, his wife Ginny was having to kind of put her own money into the business as well, and they were trying desperately trying to keep things afloat. But
new ownership came in, and oil magnate Walter Wolf took over ownership of the company and rebranded as Wolf Williams Racing. And that got to the stage where Frank Williams actually was staying on as the company as an employee, but for him, he wanted to be at the top, making the decisions with the development, so decided that he would leave and would be looking into his own ventures.
After leaving his initial project, he then found Patrick Head, where he created Williams Grand Prix Engineering, and this would prove to be a kind of dream partnership for the two working together. Working out of an old carpet factory, rather away from the glamour of modern F1, they would first go into their first season in 1978.
And 1978 was the first year that Patrick Head designed a Williams car, and it was Alan Jones that was the lone driver for them that year, and he managed to achieve the team's first points finish and also the team's first podium. In 1979, Williams took the step up. They had designed a car that was making benefit of ground effect to increase the aerodynamics and the downforce, and they entered 2 cars for the season, with Clay Regazzoni partnering Alan Jones. In Monaco, Clay Regazzoni scored the team's first points of the season, and then in Dijon they scored the team's first double points finish, and then very fittingly, the team's first win where they got to stand on the top of the podium was in the British Grand Prix, with Clay Regazzoni finishing 25 seconds ahead of second place.
And in 1980, they went even better, and they secured their first Drivers' Championship, with Alan Jones securing that title, and then with the help of new teammate Carlos Reutemann, they secured the Constructors' Championship as well, scoring 120 points, which was more than, almost double the score of their second place Ligier Motor Racing, I believe it was, from there.
In 1981, the success continued for the Williams team, securing back-to-back Constructors' Championships.
And in 1982, it saw Keke Rosberg, a familiar name to kind of more recent F1 fans, with his son Nico winning the world title in 2016. Keke secured his world title with only one race win, miraculously. He just was remarkably consistent throughout the entire season and lifted Williams' second driver's title. Between 1983 and 85, though, it was a relatively unsuccessful time compared to obviously the early success that Frank and Patrick Head had together. One of note, though, was Keke Rosberg's lap in the British Grand Prix, where he drove the fastest lap recorded at the time with an average of 161 miles per hour. We have rounded up a bit. And what was even more miraculous about that was he was having a slow puncture thing and still managed to kind of blitz a lap. So well done, Keke.
1986 posed probably the most serious challenge for Frank Williams in terms of his life. After pre-season testing at Paul Ricard, whilst travelling back to the airport, he was involved in a serious car crash, which did leave him paralysed from the waist down. It did mean that almost a year was spent without him attending a Grand Prix. However, Williams did continue to have success in that period.
In 1987, Nelson Piquet, who had joined the team, won the driver's title with 73 points, finishing 12 points ahead of his teammate Nigel Mansell, who scored 61 points that season. But after that,
from 1988 to 1990, few nondescript years for the teams, picking up a few fourth places in the Constructors' Championships. The big return was in 1991 when Nigel Mansell came back to the team after 2 seasons at Ferrari. Williams as a team finished second in the Constructors' Championship and Nigel Mansell finished second in the Drivers' Championship. And this was the start of a period of dominance for the team.
So, 1992 saw the start of the Williams dominance through the 90s. In 1992 and 93, they won back-to-back drivers' titles and back-to-back constructors' titles. In 1992, the drivers' title was secured by Nigel Mansell, but this wasn't enough to secure his seat within the team because 1993 saw the return of sporting legend Alain Prost, and he secured his last ever Formula One Drivers' Championship in that 1993 season. It was a real kind of dominant time and the car was just so fast, that thing. I think there was a record of Alain Prost was ahead by Ayrton Senna by a whole minute in a race in the 1993 season, which was complete dominance. 1994.
Was a season when we managed to get the partnership that had been long wanted within the Williams team, and that was being Frank Williams partnering up with Ayrton Senna as a lead driver within the team. It probably would have happened the season before had Alain Prost not put a stipulation in his contract that Senna was not to be a driver whilst he was at the team. Quite shows the disagreements that they had over their time within Formula One. The season itself was one of a low point for Williams in terms of performance, especially in a car designed by Adrian Newey, that was mainly down to changes to the regulations that meant that active suspension and traction control were no longer allowed to be built into the cars. The real low point of the season did come in the third race that year, and that was at Imola when tragically Ayrton Senna lost his life after losing control of the car going into turn 2 after a safety car period. Now, just so that you're all aware, every Williams car now in its livery has a Senna S designed into it in some aspect, as a tribute to the driver. And also the repercussions from that race were long-standing. Now, Frank Williams was actually charged with manslaughter in Italy, and those charges weren't actually dropped until the mid-2000s, and after some years of investigations into that. But Williams as a team put on a real show that season and bounced back and showed that resilience that they've shown throughout their time in Formula One. So in the Monaco Grand Prix that year, they only raced one car as tribute to Ayrton Senna, as it was the first race following his death. And they then continued within the season itself, and after a late boost in performance from the Williams car, and after Michael Schumacher suffering a race ban for a number of races, meant that Williams were able to actually retain the Constructors' Championship that season.
95 saw the end of Williams' domination in the Constructors' Championship, with it being won by Benetton that year. So that ended their 3 consecutive titles in a row, which has only been bettered by 4 teams. McLaren in the late 80s, Ferrari in the early 2000s, Red Bull in the early 2010s, and the current day Mercedes team. Drivers' Championship, they also missed out on that year, with Damon Hill finishing second behind Michael Schumacher. But that lack of success, TV's gone.
Maybe we should film this one again and not having that little bit in it.
Nah, let's add it in. Adds a little bit of drama, I reckon, into it.
Okay.
Moving. But that unsuccessfulness wasn't unsuccessful for too long, actually, was it?
It wasn't, no. In 1996, Williams returned to winning ways. They were in the hands of Adrian Newey, designing cars for them, as previously said, and they designed the most reliable and the quickest car on the grid, meaning both titles were returning to Williams. However, at the end of the 96 season, Adrian Newey was lured away by McLaren, but he was on an imposed gardening leave for the 97 season, which allowed Williams to retain both Constructors' and Drivers' Championships that year.
1997 saw the end of a period of dominance for Williams within F1. From the 1979 season, where they secured their first Grand Prix win at the British Grand Prix, to the 1997 season, Williams managed to rack up an astonishing 7 drivers' titles, 9 constructors' titles, and 113 race wins, which is a fantastic achievement within the sport.
Since then, it has been a slow decline for Williams as a team in terms of Constructors' Championships, going to being best of the rest and dropping to the state that we see them in now. There have been some minor successes in that period, most notably being Pastor Maldonado managing to win the Spanish Grand Prix in 2012. There was Felipe Massa and Valtteri Bottas ending Mercedes' dominance and locking out the front row of the Austrian Grand Prix in 2014. And the last podium success for Williams was the 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, where Lance Stroll managed to get a 3rd place and was standing on the podium there.
So there you have it, guys. That is our 50-year look back at Frank Williams within F1, and what a 50 years it has been for the team. Although through some hardships at the moment, there is no doubt in the fact that Frank Williams is a legend of the sport, and F1 wouldn't be the same without Williams' contribution to its history.
And hopefully Claire Williams, being at the helm, will be able to return Williams Racing back to their former years and bring back some more success to the team in the future.
So guys, if you like what we're doing, don't forget to smash a thumbs up for us, and don't forget to press the subscribe button below in this video and click the bell as well, so you can be notified when we release the videos, because they are a bit random allocation when they come out. This was meant to come out Friday, but it's now Monday, so we'll see, guys.
And don't forget to comment below as well. Give us your best memory of Williams in Formula One, and also comment on any other team, driver, or even race engineer or team principal that you'd like us to do a brief history on like this.
And remember, F1 fans, keep racing.